Hello there, I am Lady Loy. You'll find me on Lovers Rock Radio every Friday, 7 till 9, and on Gold Standard Radio every Saturday, 7 till 9. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. And depending on which part of the world you are watching me from, today's meal for the heart is when life hurts you so much it makes you feel insecure. So, decided to do this one because I think it's a very pertinent topic. I don't know whether insecurity always begins with the way we're made. I think sometimes life teaches it to us. You can go through something that makes you feel all shaken up, such that afterwards you don't quite trust yourself anymore. That's the strange thing about hurt. The event itself you might get over, but somehow it keeps living inside you. It starts asking questions that were never there before. Did I misunderstand it? Did I misunderstand something? Did I say too much? Did I not say enough? How did I get this wrong? Why did he look at me like that? What does she think of me? What if I am? And before you know it, you become both the person standing in the witness box and the barrister questioning every answer. Nobody else can hear the conversation because it's all happening inside your head and probably inside your heart. The difficult thing is that insecurity doesn't always look obvious. Most of the time, it looks perfectly ordinary. You send a message, then immediately wonder whether you should have worded it differently. You read it again, then again, and just when you've finally convinced yourself to leave it alone, you notice you've spotted a comma that suddenly feels like a life-changing decision. It's amazing what the heart can do when the heart no longer feels safe. The message isn't really the problem. The insecurity has simply found somewhere to sit. I've noticed that insecurity steals things very politely. It borrows your peace, it borrows your confidence, it borrows your spontaneity. You begin measuring your words instead of speaking naturally. You hesitate before making decisions that once came easily. You can even begin doubting your own motives. Am I doing this because it's the right thing or because I want people to like me? Am I being kind or am I simply afraid of disappointing someone? It's exhausting living under constant cross-examination, especially when the person asking all of the questions is you. I sometimes wonder whether we lose sight of ourselves, not because we've forgotten who we are, but because somewhere along the journey we became so busy worrying about how we were being seen that we stop seeing ourselves clearly. The trouble with insecurity is that it doesn't only make us question ourselves, it changes how we hear other people. A perfectly innocent comment suddenly sounds like a criticism. A delayed reply feels like rejection. Silence becomes a story, and because nobody has actually told us the story, our imagination volunteers to write one for us. Most of the time it's not a very encouraging one either. It's remarkable how quickly an insecure heart fills the blanks and almost always against itself. I think that's why today's meal begins with something very simple. Before we try to fix insecurity, perhaps we need to acknowledge it. There are moments when I simply have to say to myself, do you know what? I am feeling insecure today. Not because I've done anything wrong, not because I'm weak, not because I've lost my faith, simply because something has touched an old wound. And wounds are tender before they are healed. There is something surprisingly freeing about calling a feeling by its proper name instead of pretending it doesn't exist. Once I stop arguing with it, I can begin listening to what it's trying to tell me. Feelings are wonderful servants, but terrible masters. They tell us something is happening. They don't always tell us what is true. I sometimes think insecurity convinces us that somehow we've lost our value, when actually we've simply stopped noticing it because we've become distracted by fear. There is a passage in the Bible where God says to Samuel, "People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." I've always found comfort in that. Most of my insecurity comes from worrying about how I'm coming across, whether I've been misunderstood, whether I've measured up. Yet God quietly brings the conversation back to the heart, not because appearances don't matter at all, but because they are not where our worth begins. If I spend all my energy trying to manage everybody else's opinion of me, I eventually become a stranger to myself. Perhaps that's one of the deepest needs hiding underneath insecurity, the need to feel safe. Safe enough not to have every answer. Safe enough to make mistakes without believing they define us. Safe enough to disappoint someone occasionally without concluding we've become a disappointment. Safe enough to be an imperfect human being. Healing begins, I think, the moment we stop putting ourselves on trial every single day. We don't need to appoint ourselves as judge, jury and prosecution. Life has already been hard enough without us adding another courtroom inside our own minds. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do is quietly dismiss the case and go and make ourselves a cup of tea or a glass of wine. That doesn't mean the questions disappear overnight. They probably won't. Hurt doesn't usually leave by the front door the moment we ask it to. But little by little, as we begin accepting what we are feeling instead of fighting it, something changes. Reflection replaces panic. Understanding replaces self-condemnation. Peace slowly begins taking back the ground that fear bothered. Peace slowly begins taking back the ground that fear borrowed. If today you recognize yourself in any of this, perhaps don't rush to become confident. Confidence may come later. Begin by accepting that your heart has been carrying more than anyone can see. Speak to it with that same kindness you would offer a dear friend. Let it rest. Let it breathe. Let it remember that hurt may have introduced insecurity, but it doesn't get to decide to hurt you forever. Your heart is worth far more than the questions it keeps asking, and every day choose compassion over condemnation. You are feeding it exactly what it has been hungry for all along. So, what more can I say? Do I blab on, or do I just really leave you with those few words? Because a lot of insecurity comes from not trusting ourselves. We don't believe that we are enough. And because we don't believe we are enough, we make decisions we wouldn't have made had we valued ourselves. Sometimes we think people see what we see. They hear that. Sometimes it's almost like we believe that people can see what's inside our heads or hear the little voices we have, that I'm not good enough. You know, some people have that imposter syndrome that tells them that what people see is not who they are, even though they are actually doing exactly what everybody is seeing. So insecurity stems from maybe when you grew up, somebody didn't value you. They invalidated you. They abandoned you. They made you feel less than, and you grew up feeling that you were less than. But it doesn't mean that you are. But as long as you take on that persona, as long as you believe you are less than, you will enact that behavior. So it's about finding the worth within yourself, finding out all of the things that you are good at. Try to recall when people said something good about you or something good to you, and make a little log about that so you can start building up your self-esteem and have a little bit more confidence. But that's all I've got to say for now. So in the meantime, you take care of yourselves, take care of each other, until I provide the next meal for your heart. So take care Bye-bye.